All right, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. And if anyone else shows up, then great. If not, then it's just me and you. So, to give you a little bit of an overview of what we'll be doing for the next 9 weeks, the plan is to track water quality for Marion County until it reaches its end source. And part of it's going to be a mystery. I want you to figure out where I'm at each week. Each time there's going to be different hints of where I'm at. So, the first week, you're going to look at this one tree. It's a really famous tree. Then the second spot, maybe you'll see something else that can tell where I'm at. But the entire time, you figure out where I'm going for the next 9 weeks. On top of that, I'll be teaching you a new skill each week. So I'll give you a little bit of hint now. Our first skill we're going to learn is how to sketch, how to do scientific sketches. So you've probably seen in either textbooks or in newspapers, you've seen like sketches of animals and whatnot. But to do a scientific sketch, you have to be very detailed in what you do. So I'll teach you a little bit more about that today, and then on Thursday of this week, or whenever you want to watch this, we're going to go and take it outside, and you can actually learn how to do it with a, we'll figure out what you're going to do it with in a minute. Anyway, but also on Thursday, or whenever you watch this, we're going to have a mystery scientist. So every week we're going to have a random scientist or person who works alongside scientists to give an insight on their field. So my background, I never introduced myself. So I'm Alan Ivory, and I'm a wildlife ecologist. So my job is to work with animals and how do animals interact with plants or the world around them. But scientists I may have on my Zooms may be entomologists, or the people who work with bugs, or marine biologists who work with sharks or things in the ocean. So throughout the next 9 weeks, we'll have lots of people visiting us. Anyway, so the first thing I want to do is show you this video that I filmed earlier this week or last week about the water quality. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Hello everyone, my name is Alan Ivory and I'm a wildlife ecologist from the University of Florida. Today I'm in Marion County, and for the next 9 weeks or so, I have a riddle I want you to solve. We're going to track the water from here at this first magnitude spring until it reaches the ocean. Along the way, we're going to do some water sampling, testing pH, turbidity, the temperature, and salinity all across this entire path. On my journey, I'm going to give you a series of clues of where I am. The first clue is this palm tree behind me. It's very famous. Along my journey, we'll be tracking 5 different water characteristics. The first one will be temperature. Fish are cold-blooded, and so the temperature of the water can affect how they live. Too hot of water and their metabolism or the way they process food is way too fast, or if it's too cold, they can just be stunted and can't move at all. Fish breathe oxygen just like we do. They get their oxygen by pushing water through their gills and getting the oxygen out. So having oxygen in water is very important. Now, oxygen can get into water from waves. All of this mixture with the air can give oxygen into the water, but also from underwater plants releasing oxygen, giving oxygen to the water. So pH is the next characteristic we're going to test. pH is a scale of acidic to basic. Acidic being something like lemonade, or basic is something more like baking soda or soap. pH is important for how well fish can use the oxygen that is in the water. The next characteristic I want to talk about is turbidity. Turbidity is just how well you can see through the water. Turbidity is affected by 2 different things. On one side, it's how much stuff is floating around in the water, so sand or plant debris actually blocking your vision through the water. Turbidity is also affected by being stained. Think about it like making a glass of tea. Whenever you put the tea bag into the water, it stains it brown. That's very similar to how water works out in the environment, because as plants decompose or break down, it can change the color of water, creating black water. The last characteristic I want to tell you about is salinity. Salinity is just how much salt is in the water. While today we're in freshwater at a spring, along this journey the water may change to be more salty. As you can see in this black bar, there's a temperature of 24 degrees Celsius. Also, if you look to the bottom of this container, you might be able to see this black and white circle. We're able to see it pretty clearly, so there's low turbidity. Since you can't hear the video, I'll kind of just summarize what happens next. So I sample the water at the spring. I can't tell you which one because you got to figure that out. This part of the, you'll see in your little notebook. You have to fill that part out. But so I sample the water and I test for the different characteristics. So let me go ahead and get you that information since it's in the video. So the water is going to have a temperature of 24 degrees Celsius, as well as the dissolved oxygen will be at the most highest point. So whatever that is in your journal, let me see what that would be. So dissolved oxygen would be lots of oxygen. As for the pH, it's perfectly neutral. Now I'll explain what all of this means whenever I finish. Turbidity is absolutely crystal clear, and then because we're at a spring, there's no salt water whatsoever. There's no salt. So now I'll explain what each thing sort of means. So as I was saying in the video, well, I guess you didn't hear me, never mind. Since fish are cold-blooded, the temperature of the water can affect how well they can survive. And it doesn't affect just it doesn't affect just fish, it can affect other animals such as turtles or manatees. So for example, with fish, if the water's too cold, then they'll just kind of be frozen in spot. Since they're cold-blooded, they get affected by how cold the water is. Too cold just means they won't be able to move whatsoever. But too hot, they can move around just fine, but their digestive system or how they can process food will be so fast that they will just process the food too fast and it'd be useless to eat at that point. Now pH, I kind of compare it to like lemonade or battery acid or something more basic like baking soda or something like that. Both of them are to the far extreme is really bad for animals because it can affect how much oxygen they can go and breathe. And it'd be like you constantly having to only get a breath like every 20 seconds. You'd be and then hold your breath for a really long time. You would never go and get enough oxygen to survive. Turbidity, I explain as how much stuff is floating on the water. So that can be actual stuff like pieces of plants dissolved in the water or broken down in the water that can affect how far you can see down. Or it can be the water itself is actually stained. So different chemicals or different nutrients in water can change the color of it. So you might sometimes see your water is orange or something like that. It's called black water, and you just can't see as deep in it. The last thing is salinity. So you associate salinity with the ocean, or you think that's the only place you can have any salt, but that's not really the case. Sometimes rocks can break down and give salt into the water. So not too long into our journey, we're going to go and find some salt in our water, not just in the ocean. All right. So now using the clues. So again, since you couldn't listen to the video, I mentioned that palm tree that was in the background of one of my shots. That palm tree is very famous. It's been famous since as far as long as I know, maybe the 1960s. But use as many clues as you can, maybe do some research after the Zoom ends to try to figure out where I was at. The next part I wanted to go and move on to was to learn a skill. So this Zoom is going to end around 4:30-ish, but after that Zoom ends, I want you guys to spend about 30 minutes or so to go and learn a new skill. So let me go and show you a little bit of a background on the skill I want you to learn. Where are you at? I'm still learning this, so please bear with me. All right, here we go. And then go to, all right. So hopefully you can still see the PowerPoint. All right, hopefully you can still see that. If you can't, just write in chat so I can go and change something for you. Okay. So we're going to teach you a little bit about scientific sketches. And as I was saying before, scientific sketches have been used all throughout history, or all throughout modern history, but the idea of drawing art has been around since the beginning of humans. So the earliest artwork that's ever been found is about 38,000 years old. And that'd be that artwork on the far left. That was one of the earliest artworks ever found. And it was oftentimes in the back of caves, and it'd be kind of like a ritual. So kind of like, it was like their religion at the time, and they thought it would bring them good luck. So if they were to go and sketch this art on the wall, it could bring them good luck. And later was some other cave paintings, and then one of the most interesting pieces, I think anyway, is the fourth picture. So the second one from the right, or the fourth one from the left, that actually was found in Florida. And what's interesting about it is it's about 14,000 years old. And what you see is carved there is actually a mammoth, which what makes it interesting is that means that mammoth and humans were around at the same time, and that the mammoth was in Florida about 14,000 years ago. So could you imagine, like, we have deer and stuff outside, or raccoons, but have a mammoth walking through your backyard? That'd be insane in my mind. And so we can tell that mammoths were around whenever humans are around, because there was no other way to carve a mammoth unless you saw a mammoth. That'd be the only way of telling. Another interesting thing is this is the oldest piece of art ever found, or any oldest evidence of people in the United States was this mammoth bone found in Florida. And for this mammoth bone to be found in Florida, that means that they had to have traveled all throughout the rest of the United States, because these humans at this time traveled all the way from Alaska. They came down from Asia through Alaska, because at the time the water's a lot shallower there, but they could just walk from Asia to United States. And so if they made it all the way to Florida 14,000 years ago, people had to have been here a lot sooner than that. But now the point I want to get to is, why does scientists even make sketches? So the reason why is because it forces people, or forces scientists, to have a really keen eye at what they're looking at. They have to look very detailed at what they're looking at. Because you can just take a picture of it on your phone or with a camera, and you'll have a picture of it, which is great and all, but you may not notice specific things, or very careful things about different animals or plants. So for example, in both of these drawings, you can see that they zoom in on certain areas that are different than what you might suspect. It's also important because, like, I speak English, and I assume lots of you speak English, but that's not the only language in the world. And so with artworks, you can describe or break through that language barrier, which is important, because just let's say you go down to South America. Let's say you go to the Amazon rainforest in South America, and we go to Brazil. They speak Portuguese there, or at least most of them do. And so if I go and tell them, look at this red-bellied woodpecker, they can't understand the words coming out of my mouth. But if I show them a picture of a bird that's about 1 foot tall, has a bright red head, zebra stripes on its back, they might be able to go and tell me, oh, that bird lives in this type of tree. That might be important to know. So now, what makes a good scientific sketch? So what makes a good scientific sketch is your A, B, C, D, E. So accurate means that that's actually what it looks like. So you're not going just drawing like some generic picture. It's actually something very specific of what this actually looks like. Also something big. And this is something that I always make the mistake of, is I write very, very small. And so if I draw something, usually I draw it really small too. So it's something I have to teach myself to do, is draw big. Also being colorful, because two things might look identical, but the color of them might be what's different about them. So it's important to go and have colorful details. And speaking of details, this goes back to being big. If you have something very small, you can't make details about it. And so if you can go and be detailed of this caterpillar has this many legs, because that might be important to what this caterpillar actually is. The last thing is explaining what you're drawing. Because what I draw, you might not interpret what I'm drawing as what it actually is. You might see those bubbles in that drink and think that it's ice cubes. But if I go and write that it's bubbles, then you know it's bubbles. And this goes back to what I was saying about being accurate, that, yeah, both of those are trees, cool, but the one on the right is a lot more detailed and as accurate to what that tree actually is. So here's what, when I'm having an issue, I'm trying to fix it. Awesome, hopefully you can see it again now. So I want to go and show you what some scientific sketches look like. It's important to go and do it for insects, especially because they're so small that you might actually not be able to go and tell what it is. So you have to go and be under a microscope and count certain things. And it's just important to go and have those big details. It's important for butterflies because there's thousands and thousands of species of butterflies. So having detailed notes there is important. But also a really famous example, and you may not know it yet, but as you get older, you will, is Darwin. So Charles Darwin is the father of evolution, and how he's able to go and help explain evolution is through looking at finches. And so that picture in the bottom right is a bunch of different birds, they're finches, and they're all very specialized to their beaks. So some beaks are good at cracking certain nuts, and they became very good at that one thing. And that's what made them a different species from other species. So some have a smaller nose or bigger nose. And so having sketches from this happened in 1800s is very important. So the activity I want you to go and do today is to use those ABCDE rules to draw your hand. So there's different hints I can give you. So one hint would be to draw pinpoints around your entire hand. So little dots to go and give you the outline of your hand. But I want you to be very specific in what you do. So maybe you have hair on your knuckles. Maybe that's something special about you that other people don't have. Or maybe you have a nail that's crooked or different thing like that. I want you to be very specific and accurate to what makes your hand special. So today we're doing your hand, but a little tidbit about next week or later this week, I want you to be drawing a leaf. So thinking about details on your hand that are very important to draw in your hand. And before I go and open up the questions, I want you to leave you with a little quote. So unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. It's from the Lorax. He's talking about the truffle trees. If you haven't seen that movie, you totally should see it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Awesome. So I don't know if you have the ability to speak, and if you'd like to, you can. Otherwise, maybe you can just type some questions in chat. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll go ramble on about something else. Do you have any questions? I was going to draw, okay, no questions, okay. I was going to draw my own hand, but my art skills are absolutely terrible. But then I realized that it wouldn't be fair to ask you to draw something without me drawing something. And so if you show back up on Thursday, I will have both my leaf drawing drawn so that you can compare it to your leaf drawing once you do it. But you can also, I'll draw my own hand so that you can go and compare your drawing to my drawing. And I promise you won't be any better or any worse than me. I am not very good at this. If you'd like, since you don't have any questions, I can leave that PowerPoint slide up that has the ABCDE on it. And I'll I'll stop talking and whatnot so that you can just look at that PowerPoint slide, draw your hand, and then in chat, I'll go and put that video so you can watch that another time whenever you can. All right, so I'll mute myself, let you just look at that slide, and I'll get that video for you now. If you're done with the hand activity, just make it as detailed as possible. Maybe do some zoom in points and whatnot. I'd also like for you to go and have some explaining points where you can explain, like, I got this scar from whenever I crashed my bicycle. I think it'd be important to go and have all those details on your work. And as you can tell, I'm still a work in progress with this project. So hopefully by the next Zoom, it should be a little bit better. I'm just trying to work things out, had some technical issues before it started. I hope you all are having a really good time. I'm glad to hear that it seems like you are. Um, if you guys finish early, I have nothing better to do. So if you'd like to go and if you find any more questions, I'm here for it. Or if you want me to go and just talk about some other cool animal stuff or places I've visited while I'm working, I don't mind sharing that as well. I have lots of cool stories, at least I like to think so. As for sharing that video right now, Because I'm in Zoom, I can't go and share it on YouTube right now or listen to the link. So once this is over, I'll share you the link and you can watch it whenever you have the ability to. So my Zoom background, if it hasn't changed, is of about probably like a mile from where I am right now, actually. It's of Century Tower, and it's a tower that was built to memorialize World War II. Um, so a lot of students had to leave University of Florida whenever World War II started, and so they built a memorial for them on campus. In case y'all want to hear, I'll go and share what my background is. So I was born in Crystal River, Florida, which is not too far from Ocala, or really not too far from where you're at, if I'm being honest. And I absolutely loved manatees growing up. I lived very close to the springs there, and every year we'd set records for the amount of manatees we'd see. So a few years back now, probably about 2 or 3 years, we actually set a new record for 600 manatees in one spring in one day. So we'd have 600 manatees that were just bumper to bumper in our spring. And that was a big like changing moment in my life of just, that's so cool to go and see. And that not too long ago, manatees weren't that popular. There wasn't very many of them. But while I was in high school, I want to be a doctor, or at least I want to be a pharmacist. So a pharmacist is the person who gives you your medicine whenever you get sick. And I wanted to go and do that. So I came to UF to study to be a pharmacist. But whenever I was here, a friend of mine told me to take this class called Wildlife of Florida, which is just a class where you learn a bunch of animals that are native to Florida. And while I was in this class, a professor of mine, his name's Dr. Johnson, he's my best friend to this day, he invited me on a camping trip with him and his family. And it was in northern Florida, up in the Panhandle, which is up by Georgia, Alabama, that area. And it was near this beach. Well, it was my first time ever staying in a tent. Um, and we were sitting up very close to the beach, and this would have been sometime in April or Mayish, which I now know is sea turtle nesting time. Well, I didn't know that at the time, and whenever I woke up the next morning, about 20 yards away from me, I was seeing a bunch of sea turtles hatching. And from that moment forward, I was never going to go back to be a pharmacist. I had to work with sea turtles. So since then, I've worked at a sea turtle hospital down in South Florida. I've worked in the Grand Canyon on endangered fish. Um, I've worked in the Smoky Mountains up in North Carolina. I've worked in quite a few different places on a bunch of different animals, but sea turtles are what got me into being an ecologist. So I put this program together because growing up, um, my family was always super busy. My dad was running a restaurant, my mom was going back to school, and I had a little sister. And so I had to go and stay in after school programs. And I just thought, like, if I could have been a kid and studied science at the same time, like, I thought it'd be pretty cool. And so while today was pretty much like me lecturing you or teaching you about science, as the days goes on, it'll be less me lecturing you and more of like just us having fun. So it'd be a lot of getting outside, playing games and that kind of stuff. Um, but I just figured like it'd be nice to have an after school program where we can have a lot of fun. So hopefully that's what it turns out to be. I really hope you stick around. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I am new at this, but it should be fun. Sort of the way I want to go and do this is that on Tuesdays, we're doing like the indoor our indoor activity. So like this one's drawing your hand or something like that. But on Thursdays, it's all about going outside and doing something outdoors with your hands. So on Thursday it'll be drawing your leaf, but the week after that it'll be counting bugs. You're gonna be catching bugs and that kind of stuff. So or excuse me, looking at plants. There'll be a lot of outdoor time. I don't want you to think that we're gonna be pent up in the classroom and can't go outside. We're going to have a lot of outdoor fun if I have anything to do with it. I'm trying to think if I can share any weird animal facts that won't scare you too much. Well, I guess first, I'll go and share the first time I ever held a snake. Because I know most of you are probably scared of snakes. Well, on that camping activity or that camping trip I told you about earlier with my friend Dr. Johnson, at that point, I was like deadly scared of snakes. Well, he was like, at this point, you can't be scared of snakes anymore. And so we were out checking one of his traps. It's not really a trap, it was just checking a fence line. But there was a snake in one of his traps. And he's like, all right, well, this is the perfect time to learn. And so before I could even say no, he just hands me the snake. And it was a pine snake, which most of you probably never seen before. They're pretty endangered. There's not very many of them. But it's like this 4 or 5 foot long snake, and it just wrapped itself around me, and it was super cuddly. And at that point, I was just no longer scared. So now at the museum, we have a pet snake. And I now have a chameleon as a pet. I have my fish as a pet. So from that moment on, I kind of got a lot of more pets. But yeah, snakes aren't something to be too scared about. Actually, I have a video I made 2 or 3 weeks ago about me catching snakes and whatnot, and like what snakes to like to be respectful of and whatnot. So maybe I'll share that with you. It might be fun to learn. Let's see if I can find the link for you while I'm waiting. In case you want to see any of my videos, I have my whole playlist on YouTube, so you can watch them. I have videos about like catching frogs and a bunch of other stuff. So you're more than welcome to look at my videos. Let's see. Here's my snake day. I'll get you the link now. By no means is this my best quality video, but it talks about snakes, so you'll have it in chat here if you want to go and save it for later. But if I could share any lesson or any video of mine, I like this one a lot. Oop, there we go. Okay. All right. I will see everyone Thursday, hopefully. And hopefully by then we can get some more friends to go and watch it with us. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.